Nada, Godon, Lodon, Ujanque, Dramadon, May, Ganamadon, Ruakanji, Donamajazamba, Damji, Gado, Dog, Judan, Dor. Onozo, my Juru, Namgin, the Donyamba, Madam Jedam, Jeje, Dondor. Toja, Tardilana, Manjiva, Yon, Dobara, Doba, Zonjir. Chongkansi yonde kandenji kumarambo ji dinyo da jani jan dobar jar. Ode dobar javi jarda dobar jimbo damba ju zamo zenyamba kuna kunju ji ramba damjir. Jiden lama damba jauji jan zardavde zambar zar.
Please listen to the teachings about generating the proper motivation and the conduct in accordance with the tradition of the lineage lamas. Please listen to the teachings by generating the proper motivation and the conduct in accordance with the tradition of the lineage lamas by thinking that for the benefit of all mother sentient beings that pervade the infinitude of space, that I must attain the unsurpassable, pure, completed state of enlightenment, which is free of all the failings and mistakes and completely qualified in all the knowledge and positive qualities. And in order to attain this state, that I'm going to listen to these pure Mahayana teachings.
Orida dinida sempre javada damba chuna juda karsanzo tangli chuva naya ojuda sanji jomdendi shokja mani ngobara zabara sanji sanni ojuda sabchiduda osandu machi dirsa tavi chuji kuwini salaten jang kubara mani vi mama nagji sarda nivarisha senada ojuda tawdambo gongla ji samjeba mutujeba deyon samjenji tonde yendingi oda bardan soni karjen tombe samjirana soni soba deyon samjenji tonde yendingi oda tar ngobar zobar sanjiba deyon samjenji tonde yendingi oda ngobar zobar sanjini chusonga deyon samjenji tonde yennayon ojiga ture chu juda dandra danyar marjiga rana jiga Chujin Kolos and Chumasong Haji Marjiba de Tombani Ji Donde Ji Saba Tensabaji and Ji Salatena Koka Vendus and Tozi Dundro Danji Ransamla Chuna Masong Haji De Jenny Sangaji ending.
So these pure Dharma teachings that we are listening to are the teachings that the Buddha expounded upon attaining enlightenment, manifested the enlightenment, and that enlightenment too, which arose out of initially generating the altruistic mind of bodhicitta, which was initially generated for the benefit of sentient beings, and on the basis of having generated this altruistic mind and the time period that was spent accumulating the two types of merit over three countless eons, was also done for the benefit of mother sentient beings. And attaining the objective of enlightenment was also attained solely for the benefit of sentient beings. And upon attaining enlightenment, all the turning of the wheel of Dharma was also undertaken for the benefit of sentient beings. And when the Buddha initially manifested that enlightenment, then for a period of around 7 weeks, then Buddha did not teach the Dharma, primarily because of the profundity of the subject, like that of emptiness, which Buddha felt at the time was a difficult topic to be understood by the sentient beings, to be subdued at that time.
Ojida Dinda Jimba Yandu Juda Dinda Guni Juda Kadambu Denji Chungur Deonda Dendra Dunganani Jenny Marasayongi Ojida Deni Kadambu Denji Chungur Takarawa Senyameba Chungur Di Kamni Tomba Nijiton Tena Pabari Ojida Dinda Guda Chungur Rambasam Kurvati Ju Mayang Rogla Tamo Nansu Zamla Dinda Don Yanju Tamo Mayan Bachita Java Derja Ombo Rab Rabka Yang Rab Tazula Ju Ni Mangiva Pena Ojin country la Sabani, don't Ngoji Chusser Mambu Jus on Guari, or did that in Rayan and do that Darigo you are the Saudi Jambo de do Saudi Jambo you are the Carson you are not Ngoji Kapko Saudi Jambo you are and do what you done Ngoji Sally Sambo Saudi Jambo de Chede Java Derja Ombo Rapji, young Rapsila Marsonari Mata, Tamoala, young son and Kukavachi in Dini.
So, where at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, which occurred 7 weeks after Buddha manifested enlightenment, the first turning of the wheel of Dharma on the Four Noble Truths, then that was followed by the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, which is regarded as the teachings based on emptiness, the teachings emptiness, the lack of existence of existence by way of its own characteristics. And so basically the topic of emptiness, then you have teachings given in common, and and the teachings that are given uniquely or in an uncommon manner to those individuals with the very best of mental states, best and and the most eminent of mental states, such as these teachings that took place in indefinite places that are regarded as like in the Agnishta Pure Land and so forth. So then you have teachings, you have such as these tantric teachings. Then, as stated yesterday, you have these teachings of Mahamudra categorized, as the Sutra Mahamudra presentation, and you have also the tantric, presentation of the Mahamudra, which are specifically for those of the very best mental states, and when presented in that from the point of view of the Tantra, then it's difficult to be understood by ordinary beings.
Tang Tatak Mamoji, Sini, Kavatsa, Gogueva, Yendu, Ojuda, and Jindui, Java, the chat, the Susan Jivala, Tindaga, Jijan Rambochico, Gonin, South of Guachi. Sang Tindaji and Bayandu, Nola, delete Tomotachi, dear Gini Shuguya.
And so when we talk about attaining enlightenment, then you have the presentation of the view of attaining enlightenment by accumulating merit over 3 countless eons. But then you have those for whom it takes 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9 countless eons to attain enlightenment. And when we talk about a period of 1 countless eon, then you're talking about millions and hundreds and thousands of years. Each eon is made up of an extremely long period. So in that way, you have that kind of requirement of a time frame within which one is required to accumulate the merit to attain enlightenment. Then, from the point of view of Tantra, then there is another time frame presented as for attaining enlightenment.
Ojida Dina Yamba Yandijida, Mojidi, Jedijava Derja, de la Yonji, Dui Jedijava Derjali, Ombo Rab, Yang Rabji, Yanga Yuari, de non Sigo Shina Yon, Ramden Jinraji Yuari, Ombo Tamaji and Nayang Jedijava Derja, Ojida, Jiva Jeduk Tsenshab, Javadurjin, Jambadari, Compound Tunis, on Guari. Ombo and Drenchi and Jeduk Cheka, Jiva Jizam Jirana, Javadurjin, Jango Compound Tuningi. Yang da Drengo Jiva Jiku Chikadi, Ombo Rabji and Jiva Jizam Jirana, Sanja Tungi, 다 원부 랍게 영어랍 된다지 옛날지 세지 리지라 제바도니 장고 공방 말아 도야고 지 뭐지sab지 된다지 이 요바연바연도 어디다 도이지데 잡아들시 니긴 석석 구한다나 영지 지진 참마상고 고니 저런 당 요바 된다지 엔딩.
So, and then from the point of view of the practice of tantra, the four levels of tantra, then generally we would say practitioners on the path of tantra then requires the best of minds, more excellent than a practitioner on the sutra path, and even within the very best of minds of. In the following the tantric path, then you can further divide it into three to four sections. Even the lowest of these best of minds, then it is said that on the path utilizing the path of tantra, then within 16 lifetimes, then an individual can attain the enlightened state of Vajradhara, and then. For those in the medium category, then half of that time frame, which is like 8 lifetimes, and then then those better than that, then half of that 8 lifetime, which is 4 lifetimes, and the very very best of the most excellent, then it is said that they are able to attain enlightenment within the period of 1 lifetime. With one body, within 1 lifetime, then by utilizing the profound and extensive methods of the path of tantra, then are able to accomplish this. But whether it is on the sutra path or on the tantra path, then it is the same that an individual is required to accumulate the complete causes and conditions, and when all of those on the basis of the completion of the causes and conditions, then accordingly the resultant enlightenment happens.
Congotenji Dechen, Kijikina, Tonjava, Lamaran Chen Tavak, Durji Janja, Pelanda, Senator, Durji Jam, Java Durjin Jan Sejeti, Mojidi Goni, Lam Yamne Chip, Jason Wadi, Tamkiwaji and by Tamkiwa, Chedajava Derja, and do only on board Rabji, on Rabji and by and do. Go Chiva, then Manda de Rachudi Chiva Chidri, Tiwardin, Drandi Marachiva, and then Chedico Chica Jetamri, T Cheka, Omarajesam, the Rabji, Yon Rabji, and not Siji Lichula, Sanjava Siji, Tinraji, Jonadi, Jikara, Karjan Dome, some Siji, Tela, Tuna. Tu Kichima chicken say Tamaris and a dark chicken, Tom Giras, or that in a goni tongue she wages out in the ending.
So therefore, in the path of tantra, upon praising, upon you have these lines of praises which says like, out of your kindness, then in but an instant, enlightenment is achieved, and O jewel like Guru, at your lotus feet I prostrate. Such as these lines of praises that are often, there in one's tantric sadhanas, then denote how in the case of practitioners on the path of the tantra, then although you have the best of the minds in comparison to those in comparison to the sutra path, then no matter how long it takes to attain enlightenment on the tantric path, the longest is like 16 lifetimes. Then for those of the average, the medium, and then you have 8 lifetimes, and those better than that then are able to accomplish over a period of 4 lifetimes, half of that, and then the very best of the best are able to do so within the period of 1 lifetime. So when you talk about this kind of time frame, then it's like being able to accomplish enlightenment within the scope of 1 lifetime is like like a one moment. When we look at time frame, then in an instant, in but an instant, one is able to accomplish enlightenment. So this particular stanza of praise, denotes this particular feature.
Ojuda dinaji yemba yendu juda ndoda ngo nigi lam gomzir de la jen ren tang jigua di da karson so shua nang jeri yeri tomba nye yeri chakdea chenpu goni ma yemba tomba nye dongo nigi ne sangya di chikpa raji yendingi yeri jenga yishi di ojuda shiwa rapi tomba nye yeri she tang di ndoyi shak yendingi jen ngo jidi ji shiwa chamo shi di nani ngo lami kong de chi na yong chi shiwa sem chamu nani shantan chaba sem chamu wo si je di tomba nye yerda chi she taba chi jongwa yenna di nishiki chiwa yendu wo chi da yen tang tang tinra chi ka ren la jirwa durjin chang ko kompang tobya di chi shiwa chamu da ngo de jirwa goni yenba yendu mandraba chebar tinra chi ka goni chi di yote.
So when we talk about attaining the state of enlightenment on the sutra path and tantra path, how long or how short it's going to take, is the difference not from the point of view of the subject. The difference not from the point of view of the object here, the object being emptiness, but the object emptiness on sutra path and tantra path is the same. But the difference is made from the subjective mind realizing that emptiness. On the path of the sutra, then it is the gross mind, the subjective mind realizing emptiness is gross. Whereas on the path of the tantra, the 4 levels of the tantra, the subjective mind, involved in realizing emptiness is subtle, and on the highest yoga tantra, it is not only just subtle, but extremely subtle levels of the mind, subjective mind, which realizes that emptiness, and that is what makes the difference. When you involve the very subtlest of the mind to realize that emptiness, then it becomes a very, very powerful state of mind, and thereby enabling the individual to attain Vajradhara's enlightenment within a very short period of time. So that is the main difference.
Vajida dinda yima yandu jida shivan chamu sem chamu di ngondu jirwa kabje yangu yuwari ta ngondu jirwa kabje yuwadi da ngola meni songwadi Vajida nyalapo kabso jiga pena jiga malam tongwa kabso shiva rapa ganga nyalabdi na rongshi ku dunrogu yuwa yandu teni shivan chamu di ngondu jirku yuwari ti yima yandu nyi kabso Vajida malam ji kabso senanda nyamne jiga jiga rapa yudingi shivan chamu ngondu jirwa kab tambo di tiyendingi ta nyuwa di jiga temme de jar songwa kab yangu yuwari di jar songdu na Nag Tamse Sandina, Yamne Jiago, Kokamra, some Sabo me by and do younger you are married, come you are ready to pay Matangi. That's somebody, Tubanyam Jurka Kapsayan, or Judam on the Java Kapu and do Jitan Sawaji, Taban Tomboji, and not tea Kapsa, and Dochakalam Jesse, tea cup that journal, Jiga some Tamo di, Petu Jiga you are a tea cup Samba. That in your cup Javadi, then Chova cups, you got to go on Lula Marji Sangam, Changam, and come along, come in Jonga Jinkam, the Ni Namkin comes in under. Or you that any you no G Tosum said you Noa Karlamba, Chiba Marlamba, near the Manolamba, CGT, Jonja Dumbo cups, Shiva Conga, Kaligo, Ramji, do. Then you no G Tosum come, Shiva and Tramu Kavian Yuari. Or that daily you know cups and tramu, Chiba cups of daily don't travel. Near the cups of daily don't travel. Or that any Chiba was a good cups of the Shantan travel cup day and buy and do, or you that did the Tindago, you and Chiba was a good cups of Shivan Tramu, the Monte Java, cup you buy and do Tim Mugir de Jagni, or you that somber cups you can Chatuga. Durham di Chitava and the Marijan Dendra Wochi, or then Chiva Capsa, Lambda on the Chitavaga, Taduji, Yangu Yuva and Duta, Chuan Ramon on the Chiva Kapji, your body in Changuachu.
So the occasions when our subtle mind manifests is on 4 occasions during our lifetime, as stated within the highest yoga tantras. Then, when we sleep, and particularly when we dream, all of the gross minds are absorbed or dissolved, and so at that time, the subtle mind arises or manifests, and one is able to utilize that occasion of that subtle mind to engage in practices. The other time when the subtle mind arises is like, for example, when we faint or lose consciousness. But on that occasion, then because the mind is unclear, so it's even though the subtle mind lacking awareness, unclear. So so this period is of no use at all, even though the subtle mind arises. One cannot utilize it because of lack of awareness or clarity. Then the third occasion when the subtle mind does arise is when one has intercourse. And on such occasions, then when all of the causes and conditions are there together, and when one has realizations within one's mind, then one can utilize that occasion to be able to take that attachment or desire into the path. The fourth occasion when the subtle mind does arise is at the time of death, when all of the elements, the earth, water, fire, and the wind and the space, when these elements dissolve or are absorbed, and then when one goes through the 3 appearances, the appearances, the increase, and the near attainment, you have the white appearance, the increasing red appearance, and the black near attainment. Then during these periods, then because all of the gross minds have been dissolved, and as particularly when one goes through these appearances, then with the white appearance you have a subtle mind, and when one experiences the red increase, then that mind is even more subtle, and then when one goes through the black near attainment, that is even more subtle, and then finally the mind of clear light at the time of death, then that is the most subtle. So with this as one's objective, then during one's lifetime, then one should practice do this meditation on the dissolution process at the time of death, so that when death occurs and when one has the occasion for that rising or manifestation of the subtle mind, then that through having practiced it during one's lifetime, prepared for it during one's lifetime, that one can use the occasion for one's meditation when one has that subtle mind arising.
Ojuda dinda yimba yandu dinda go nisala teni juda ngola jidi ji yopanoni ngola mi jidi jwa ti on de chidu juda nalam gomya di cheram tan zorum ni gom go yawari cheram go kapso ji lam chir samse na injen chwa chuku jirwa lam chi ardu lam ko jirwa lam chi chiwa trukun jirwa lam chir se lam chir sam gomba sawda ojuda deni zorum ji kapso ojuda long wa mar chini thamsam se je da zorum go kabla long se je di yongo ro tsaro chang ma samga na ni yongo ro chang ni ge nang go long di namjin ro chang ni ge na ni chalo de par tong wa da no de ngabya di lam ka tin da yin ge yuwa ri di ro chang ni ge nang go long di tsawa mi na la sar shi atabti na yang ji shi ba chelong wa ji ne shi ba zam de ma di shi ba chelong wa ji yang shi ge ne da long mi na de ni ba chelong wa ji yang ji shi ba chelong wa da ni ba chelong wa zam de ma si tam ba chelong wa ji jang go we wa yin du long wa ma shi ni tam sam se je sam chelong wa ji jang wa yin na che du na yin go wa ji da zong gom to go jang yin kam de ram ji du na dan che du na yin ji no wa cha yang go yu wa ri o da ti gom ya go gu wa di shen den tra ba long sam tra mo de ngon de ji gu wa yin ding the Joanna, Dennis on a Zoram go, Wonder was sooner, or that long American some Namjiva, Joanna, the Chantan travel on some Tramo, the Marji Tombani, Kodonji, on a tea journal, Lam Gombayana, or the Sitchi Lichila, San Jago, Dan Gunda would it in Rango and do, or the Yerjan Chantan travel on some Tramo, they want the Jirgu Guat in the Chinding.
So, in accordance with the 4 levels, the 4 levels of the tantric practice, particularly in the scope of the highest yoga tantric practices, then you have the meditation on the path involving the completion, the generation stage yoga, and the completion stage yoga, and on the generation stage yoga, then you have the taking the taking the paths, taking the paths into the 3 Buddha bodies, taking the death into the Dharmakaya, the Bardo into the Sambhogakaya, and the birth into the Nirmanakaya. Then on the in the completion stage yoga practices, then you have the practices of kind of enabling the winds to enter, to abide and absorb within the central channel. Is the main scope of the practices of the completion stage yoga. Usually within the 3 channels, you have the central channel and the right and the left channel. Usually all of the winds of the right and the left channel, then they do not. Usually, in our ordinary life, it does not enter into the central channel, but rather leaves through our nostrils, and then you breathe. You take it in. Then the activity only takes place in the right and the left channel. But through the meditation practices of the completion stage yoga, then you do the practices, to be able to insert and enter the winds into the central channel, and not just enter. It has to enter it in a way fulfilling all the measures of fulfill all the measures of entering a wind into the central channel, and then not only entering it, but enabling it to abide within the central channel, and not just any kind of abiding, but that those winds must abide within the central channel, fulfilling all the measures of whatever is an abiding of the wind within the central channel, and not just abiding. Then also you have the absorption of the winds within the central channel, and not just any kind of absorption, but it has to fulfill all the measures that qualify it as having the winds absorbed within the central channel. So in this way, through the completion stage yoga practices of entering, abiding, and absorbing the winds within the central channel, then through the power of one's meditation of the completion stage yoga, then one is able to manifest or arise that subtle mind. One is able to just like at the time of death, then one is able to dissolve all the gross minds and manifest or arise the subtle mind. Arise the subtle mind through entering, abiding, and absorbing of the winds within the central channel. So with the subtle mind, evoked or arisen through the power of meditation, then one is able to generate that kind of a subjective mind to be able to engage in the practices of the realization of emptiness. And so this is what enables, the feature of being able to attain enlightenment within one brief lifetime.
Irjen Shakja Jembo Seji de Gombala, Wajida Nolamiko, Dokji Jingon de Tong, Dini, Dajing, Mondu Rambadi, Wajida Jamru, Samji, Wajida, Dini, Jiwa Jangi Chukur, Rengu Chukur, Chimbu Chukur, Jiwada, Kartan, Shiwadi and Anjari, Wajida and Garzego, Gajibu on the China, Yang. Topi Chuya Sejadan, Barden Sachavi on the China Shimba, Jetera Sejo, Oda Tindergamba, Memandava Tavari Mato de Inji, and Lamram go Kap Chu, Chende Johnson go Yamne, the Sojidenchi, Tea Tanning or Jinamne, China, Chiramagum, that's Zoramagumba Teni. Irjen Shakja was some Tamu Demo de Jiragolida, Gumguachi, and Bayandu, that Kartanga Ramba, Mambochi Samadi in the ending.
So in order to generate the Mahamudras, such as this subjective mind of Mahamudra, then in accordance with the highest yoga tantra practices, first and foremost, then one must do the self-generation practice. And then that self-generation practice is undertaken on the basis of having done the preliminaries, such as generating the mind of refuge, bodhicitta, and then going through, the meditational practice of the small, medium, and the highest scope, as stated yesterday, in accordance. In accordance with the Kagyu tradition, you have what is known as the four dharmas of Tapo, and then you have in accordance with the Sakya tradition, you have what is known as free from the four types of freeing oneself from the four types of clingings. So basically, these are regardless of the titles, then basically these are the lamrim, the three the path and practices of the small, middling, and the highest scopes path and practices. So with this as one's foundation, then one should do the generation stage practice, and then through the completion stage practice, then generate the subjective mind of Mahamudra. Subjective mind having as its object emptiness is the Mahamudra.
Hojida Dindra Yimbayanduda, Dindra Di Juda Chishi Chigdanda, Shiraka Jabadida, Karsan Shuan Samdi, Hojida, Penchilona Chujenga Songo, Shokchen Savandriva, Yansa Domingo Dandi, Poikatoni, and Shotang Navago, Oda Nyango Tundren, Dajivano, Tundren Jivari, Navana, Tena, Hojida Mujir, Mundri Rambadita, Sonsan, Daniva Muji and Bayandundana, Niva Nosi, that Savadi, Shokchen Savadi Marathon, that in Rivasan Duna. Niwana Muji Shakja Chembola, Jesser Mountain, Dunayon, Dongo Yevi, Nisa Yosinada, Dati and Chini, Shakjan Sava, Dai Choluka, Parchir, nothing on the son somebody, Dai, and the Muji Shakja Chembola, Sejeti, Choluka, the Tupa Diversigan, and do. Ojida, Tsukan somebody Dongo Yevi, Nisa Yo, Shiva Disina, or that's somebody drawn. Or that the dawn at the Tiana Tino, that's going to do it.
So, what was just spoken was just the general introductory talk. So, now going to the main, the actual subject, the Mahamudra, Pension Loss and Chögyal Gyaltsen's composition of Mahamudra, then. In accordance with the Tibetan text, we are on the 5th page. So what we've covered is all the preliminary section, which is the first 5 stanzas of the text. And beginning from the 6th stanza, then you have the actual body of the text. The first 5 stanzas mainly deals with the preliminary section. So that begins with the line in the text which says, as for the actual basic techniques, although there are many ways of asserting Mahamudra, there are 2 when divided according to the sutras and tantras.
Ojuda dinner and by and do that Choloka, that to Pagas con some town, that chickdee, Mugi on a holiday varity, or that it don't on do not you are the Muji Soja Chembola and Chepran Java, 30 Mondays, or that Java and the Conwanas, that Kajala, Kaji Cheese, Chong Jis in the Rumba Yuarva, Dino in the Conca Jibber, what you done, Lungo and Buji Marasonati Marason down and that Javan the Conva, Lungo and Buji Gomba and Zini, or you Toba, some down river, Chauchan, so Chauja, Yaki, Namja and Zidi, that in Zebra Conva, Chiki, the Sabi Chauja, Namja, Lishan Chunams, Toba, Namji Chauja. Lamji Chauja, Namja, Din, Rongo Komi, Rapson, Tumba Samla, Somba, Tinian to Lingo Yesam, the Mandra Liji Chauja, Konzo Dami, Gumba, Chuji Chauja, in she's on the Yamatra, Tamsi, Pombola, Meba, Yang and Diva Chauja, Chishanju Samba, Gosam de Paruchan to Mandraba. Oju Liji Chauja, Tini, Jamatu, Tondra, Tino Chuji Chauja. Then in Jitu Mamuji on the Rondon to me, Maguva, to me, and sorry, Magumens, I didn't remember Johnny, Rondon to me, Maguva, Tina Tamsi Chojai, Tombania don Ninji, Runya, Basoja, Jambo, Yano, Songawa, Lamtana, Punya Temba, Lijala, Lonesome Kaju, Mandra, Tina Chuji Soja, Yamba Meba Tamsi, Tanji. Monjera dinner Soja Chembo that the need told of the man or the Legion Gurmuba down longer lovely jay, Devachi, the Chuji Soja, Shisha, Chabame Batam to the Sandra Soja Chembo and she's on what was it done the Jitsu Mamuji Sonja Rimato, Tonda was the on a carton Shua no generally. To the numbers on you, Tava Kartoji Soja, GD and GT Tavan Babding, Tango Kicha Mamuji Sonja Rimato, the Chidam Jimata was so Jidam Jidinga, Chidam Jitan Jidome by Yang and Diva, Shivati, Tijo, the Marisoja, Tin only year Soja Jambodi, Tombania, Domeba, the GT, Soja, the travel on some tram, Gumgua, in Jit in the Chila, Soja, and Durdinat in the Chinding.
So, Rinpoche read through the commentary, but to take the essence of it, then Rinpoche says it deals mostly with in essence, this deals with the four seals, four seals, which basically refer to the four distinctive Buddhist views that all compounded phenomena are impermanent, that and that all contaminated phenomena are suffering, that all phenomena are empty and thereby selfless, and that nirvana is peace. So here, the main object here to be dealt with is the object of emptiness or selflessness, and the subjective mind here is the mind realizing that emptiness.
Ojida Dina Yamba Yandu, Juda, Dino Neon Juda, Gulu Zava Chembojona Barco, Yonji Bachitron Yuari, Gulu Chembojona Parna, Tonyang Yuva, Nabramatawa, Ishi, Dina, Soja Chembori, Monji, Saujan Logi, Tomer, Tana Sanji, Temba, Josul Tarvani, Parazan, Jabatan Yamne, Tamjila, Jin de Berjaba, Soja Chembu, Tam Joberja, she should be Cherosi, or Judam Gulu Chembu, Son de Juton, the Nisser Duona, the Terracer Nas Sojansi, Dam Moragan Kivato, Soja and Ranina on the Nabana Soji, you are ready, Sir Durdiona, Savarona, Dongon is the usage to Sir Down at the Durdana, Dongoji, Nisosi, or Dan Dongo Nisishi, the Nish Hamati, Moyan by Yanduta, Sir Durdiona, Titanis on building.
So, in accordance with, again, taking the presentation of Gul Lotsawa, then, it says that although you have many ways of presenting Mahamudra, the main way is to present it in the form of sutra and tantra, and then here, what is presented here is from the point of view of the tantra.
do da ngo ni go shak chen ye zer ni yo ba yan du shama de ngo ji shak chen de ye gi nyong nyong go ni tong bu ji ma shu ge yan se ne nan do ge shak je chen bu de yu ge shak ne da de ni da ye za ba rong na yong shama yi ri de shama de ye gi nyong er tong bi je tong ma she ba se de ni shak chen yong na je song ne yong na rong go za ba di zhong ne shama du ji lu ne la ne de ne zo tam ki li jong de chen o sar de Sara down literature, Narumi, Shakchen, Daisy, or Jidata or the Nitan Sausage, then is only to look at the Bataji. That me Corny Temba, you let me Jidi on ye, Senator. That you look at Tama Jibati Sakoni de Montatron. That day down at the or Jida in Jidaji turning issues of Atari, Lula Nitan and Bassett, Zoram go Kamni, along with Marshini, Thompson, Gina, Salon Tulila, Marignamne and our Goni, Yirjan, Shantan Travel, on some Tramo, Diva Chimbuishi, they want the agility, T. Tombania, Oser, Tombania, Yerta Cheriadi, or Juda, Nolamiko, Kapko, Sanja Jimbo and Bayandu. The Yambala Tripchen, Sara Havada, Gumbola Dusha, then he Jizanarua Chembo down, Mitrava Chembu, Shakchen, the Soganga, Tremia Corsija, to Dua Dida Sejit, Jean de Saint, then you are in the only Marion, young Yuari, or that day, net to Tripchen, nobody, Gumbachi, the ending it in Dayango, Titani, Shakchen, you are the Jenny Rambajan, the sugar and son building.
So in presenting the text, then in accordance with the root text, then it has been presented from the point of view of the tantra in an abbreviated manner, and then followed with the sutra presentation later. So here, in accordance with the Tibetan text, then is the verse 7th and part of the 8th, which says. The latter is a greatly blissful, clear light mind, manifested by such skillful methods as penetrating vital points of the subtle Vajra body and so forth. So here, this section then basically deals with the practices that are involved in the completion stage yoga of entering, abiding, and dissolving the winds within the central channel, through, where penetrating the vital points refers to the practices of the channels, winds, and the drops, and through and thereby generating, evoking or generating the very subtle mind, the very subtle wind and the mind. On the basis of which then one is able to engage this mind in in realizing emptiness, in accordance with the highest yoga tantras, Mahamudra practice. So the instructions of these practices, the Mahamudra is the Mahamudra of the traditions of these great masters, such as Saraha, Nagarjuna, Narupa, and Maitripa, and it is the essence of the Anuttara Yoga, highest Yoga Tantra class of Tantra, as taught in the 7 texts of the Mahasiddhas and the 3 core volumes. So, basically, these instructions are the same thought, are the same instruction or same intention of all of these great masters, and it is presented or taught. Presented or taught in the context of these, what are known as the 7 texts of the Mahasiddhas, or the 7 topics of the Mahasiddhas.
대양 지셔의 적재 전부 시샤시나시 근데 적재 세제디 제랑나 양말지 적재 그 다시지 상야고 지식디 장고 요아리 다저 고는 참저 되니 달렌지 고니 적재 들리고 세지 제디 장나 적재 들리리 상나 동부예시디 자나 콜베 줄리도 전부성도 니바디 적재 전부 시조도 시성바 달지 시성바 달시 샤마응얼지 적재 전부는 ngoli ko chode jembo gomya di da ngaknani ngojidi ji nani lami ngi wa yendu ji lami ko jeram da dogram gomya la changjen ro dambo di lami ko wangji chi go wa yendu ndana wangje number da ba oji da na wangje number da ba thobjen da hong di zo kilong wa tam su da ba sirjen de song wa to ba da tam su song wa yirshi da di teni lam chiram da zoram gom go wa yendu chiram kombar na tembar chi di da chiram tembo ji wa yena teni yeni zoram gom go zina durji li la ne de ne se du long wa mar chi ni tam sam ma si ji lu ga na na za da long da oji teni dili karman rogo wa yendu ti no jinni sem ji thara kanga jinni rogo wa wa tinda yendu durji li la ne de na ba so chenang go tham ki bi along wa mar chi ni tham sam shi wa ri jong wa la ji ji diwa chen bu da chen de thawa long sam dhamo de sang go wa ri e shi ji ye yer jen ji yer tong ni de tong ji ser ji ta ba pe wo ser da ti ta we shi ji tong ni da dambo ne pe yo ser da ti ka zo tong ba ni tong ji ser ji ta wang go wa ri nam shi na mu ko sun thong na je ngo sam de ta wang du na ji da ngo lu ko ngo la mi ko lu ko da thong la ba lam to wang go wa yen du ti ta we shi ji tong ni ngo sam de ta ba tong ji wo ser yin xin wo ser de ni ji ngo ri je ba sam de la da ngi tong ji ri da tin da ji ma sang go wa yen du da shama di ji ni shu.
So, in order to engage in the tantric Mahayana practices, here in the tantric Mahayana practices, then it is within the scope of the highest yoga tantric practice that one engages in it through undertaking the generation stage yoga practices, completion stage yoga practices. And in order to do this, first and foremost, then one must receive the four the four pure initiations, and upon having taken the initiations, the empowerments, then one must keep pure all of the pledges and vows, commitments that one has undertaken in the course of these empowerments. And with this as one's foundation, then one engages in the generation stage yoga practices and the completion stage yoga practices of enabling the winds to enter, abide, and absorb within the central channel, and then as well as penetrating the vital points of one's Vajra body, involving the channels, the winds, and the drops, the white and the red drops. And through such external and internal methods, then generating this subjective mind of the the very subtle wind and mind, which engages the object emptiness. And then when one initially, then one has a generic image of that emptiness, and at that level, then you have what is known as the clear light of example. Then as one furthers oneself in that practice, then when there comes a time when one is able to directly perceive that emptiness, like our visual perception, seeing external form, then directly is able to see emptiness. That is when one attains the tantric path of seeing. When one attains that level, then one has achieved what is known as the clear light of meaning.
Tela Nitonji Atons in the Memandava Mamuji Tazo Yuari, or that the Tawadi Pena and Saint Otaba Japan Saint Juvenile, and the Yundra, Conjinja, Tonji, Kitabayan, Sanjavati, Noja, that in Drago, Chundan travel, some tramo, Tombani, Yurdi, Yurgen, some tramo de la Mandagduna, Nitonji Yigi Atonzi, Trontonji Yigi Adon, Nitonji Yigi, and Nishin, that Tela. Nitonji Atons in a Manatang University, Mentambotan, Machiwa Tuli, Sijutia, Metang University, Menua, Maju Simpson, Ranjang Uding, Numi Simra, and by and do Timesamba, that Tamaraji Shiva, in a Wajita Ranches, Yuban Tamara Shivati, Mejiva. That men about the Numi, some she saw G mango. She saw the mango songs that Memandava, Manda Gonimara, Tela Meta Ding, Jit on the Chibati, Shantan travel, some tramo, Yerjengo Soja Chimoti and Ding.
So, when we talk about this subjective mind of Mahamudra, in recognition of this mind, then this is regarded as recognized or ascertained as being the definitive atung, the short R, or and they also you have the interpretive atung, the short I. Interpretive atung. So this is also referred to in this text known as Manjushri Namasamgiti, which is the expression of the names of Manjushri within this text. You have this mentioned, and so this subjective mind of Mahamudra then has different name. Is referred to. Besides being known as the definitive atung or the interpretive atung. Atung is short R, and then also it is known as Rinpoche. Somebody Rinpoche.
Oh, somebody
self-arising, self-arisen mind, non-generated self-arisen mind, primordial mind, the indestructible drop, the mishik indestructible mind, primordial mind, Ranjung self-arisen mind. The self-arisen mind is same as a non-generated mind, and this also known. Basically, these are all the different terminology that is utilized for this very subtle mind, the mind of subjective mind of Mahamudra.
What you that any Tamara she was Rajanga Maruding, and one the Machivari Mata, one the General Rajanga Uding, Nima said with Tamboni Marding it in Rayan Bay and do that in Rachi, that is Majin Maguaji, that any da, what you that in Drago, you Yerjan Jimbo de Tayago, you Savadi Jenny Tenso, you are the Tinjavadi, Jago Gomba, the Truchin, Sadan Suman, Drivari Sena, or Dandana, the song you are. Parangombo, Diva Chambo, Suchi Durji, the Hansi, Truchin Suchi Durji, Diva Chambo, Hansi, me, Samandra, Nida, you are and do what you duck on Suchi Durji, Tedan, the need to change Sarah Hadan, that to change Niji, the need to shop down some G, retro on shoes do. What you done the Garzego Sad read that retro on you down there in the change Jivaji, that the need Telo Adam, Navaji, Naru Ada Tubaji, that to change Metrovati, the Tindragon was a song of Adi to change Tindragon, same with the song that the Metro was on Poirji to change Nam down Hossi, Tiramasi, Jida, Namara Chijilo Drida, Digitamala, Tabu Gambo Vada, Pomo Travasa, Kajukalama, or that the Sonam Jijan, Jeba, 30 boys, 30 boys, Chensi Jedi, Jagaran Kiva, Tijan Kona Congress, you are is an idea on a Tabat did, John descend, Titan Lion, Nyambo. Toa course in a Jean Mandava, some down the Jetamba Dimun, Zanga Yuayandu, or that is Sugar.
So,
Tambo to Kansas in San Luison, or that the knee on the Dajin Musan.
With regards to the very subtle mind of this subtle mind here, when it is generated, then when it arises, then it arises without effort, self-arisen, and it's by nature there, ordinary in the sense of that it's non-created, so indestructible. So so it is in these because it bears these kind of features, then it is known by these different titles. Titles, this subjective mind of Mahamudra. So when presenting this when presenting this topic, then in accordance with the Tantra, then the commentary to this the commentary to Mahamudra then is taken from the writings or the commentaries by these 7 Mahasiddhas. So you have besides the 7 commentaries made by the 7 Mahasiddhas, such as Sarha, Nagarjuna, Naropa, Maitripa, and Rinpoche Dingyegi Sum Samasun.
Ori Tambo de Sochi Durji Tambo, Tenisara, Niva, Little Shabdi, Samba, Shiva, Retro, Jude Duna, Shavariva in Givari, to change Shavariva.
Then you have, the Mahasiddha Shavariva, and
the Shavariva Dimazuka, the Durji Dengatana. In
this Mahasi, the Shavariva is the Mahasi, near Bodh Gaya there is a hermitage or a cave which is regarded as the hermitage of this Mahasi, the Shavariva. I don't know his Sanskrit name, and Rinpoche. Tandoni Samas.
Tenida di Yojiti Gona to Gentilova, Tenin Narova, Natuji, Tenim Devati.
Do you have Tilopa?
Narova.
Tilopa, and then Tango this
Tambo de Suchi Durgia, the Archibosiji Tambo.
And then the first, the next Tsogi Doji. I don't know his Sanskrit name. Tsogi Doji.
Tsulichi was it then? Guru Rinpoche, Bimanjoni Sevariwati, the Chandavanda Ginding, and Sononi Marantoy. This
Mahasi, the Tsogi Doji, like Pema Sambhawa, was said to have arisen from the lake.
That Bimanjoni Romari did made on Chandavanda with Tazami.
It is not, he's not Guru Rinpoche, but the name is similar to Guru Rinpoche, like Tsogi Doji. Tso is like the lake, Vajra of the lake, just as you have, the lotus of the lake. And then you have these are the 7 Mahasiddhas, both the Indian Mahasiddhas, and then you have the Marpa from Tibet, like that, and then their commentaries then based on 3 sources of texts. These 10 features make up the instructions on the Mahamudra.
Oh, did that in the embassy and did that in the to change you that the moody really, Jean really, you are in the Dandiana. What you that no longer opportunity to you are on the genius or say and last. Dinner Trava didn't dance it. Trava didn't send a John Drango, you are in the only my drawing you are dear gona, the moody gona, Nimbo, Corsum Sene, in you toa secretary, sounds of critical Toniana toa sang you are a pokigo and a Nimbo Corsum say, John somebody drawn at Tambanda in do Corsum Ji, so one and your lamiji. Jadi jwa lami ti nani lami jadi jamso ta shudi nyembu nangu nyembu ndo yen no sita deba de se jadi kar re sena ta chi go tpyen tambon chuchi dur ji go son sena da diwa chimbo sena ti deba de no gombo diwa chimbu sonwa deba se jadi da deba se ji jang de sen den yuwa yen du deba tambo de sonwa deba se jadi tambo ji da songa trapa siji di juja kar tongu yuwari senan di no ngayi samanza songa di wa tsaji ko gomba suran drenna da drenna tani parden drenna di chejura nara song yuwari parden dulin chawjen min jikden kanji ranchen chik shisan di wa chiwa juni songa di wa la chejua ngoju chin zena odan di wa chiram songa di wa songa trapa siji di nona songa di wa chiram nyonyo chumar song chebar de songa di wa zagram go kurdi chebar saji ji ngidon zagram thombu kapji de dang yerme ji lam sarde tawne che si oji da de songa trapa di danga nang sawan ro yin ba yin dun dan temnye yen nam ji chmo ta oji da ngama ji bena ji kakar ka wo sawan ro yin ba yin du da songa de dang thoma di songa trapa siji di ending.
So here this the 7 texts of the Mahasutras, is attributed to the commentary, is attributed as the to the commentaries made by these great Mahasiddhas. Of these, then the first is what is the first is what is known as Sawandupa, means accomplishing the secrecy. The main subject of this text is that it is based on the Guhasamaja text. Taking the Guhasamaja, then root tantra, then beginning with the praises to this tantra, then going through a brief generation stage yoga practice, then focusing particularly on the completion stage yoga practice of the indivisible practice of the indivisible practice of the bliss and the emptiness is the first part. And when we talk about the 3 core volumes, the 3 core. What it basically deals with is what it basically deals with is what's known as the 3 spheres or the 3 cycles of antidotes, which are regarded as the very essence of the essence, the very essence of the essence.
Oji da dinda yimba yendu ji da traba de dan se ji traba de dan ga nang ni dambo de da ji ga parang gombo de wa chimbo sena da suji dur ji sena da ti song jang de song traba di dambo yending da tin chong bi tin tho ni oji da ji di loma da ji wa lo jeng go ji trab chen nga go song ji wa ri ti nga wi tan la yang ji da kar su go trabchen mu ten jen cham lap che kara si je da nanjur ma da si je oda trabchen mo ni ge song ja ga we da trabchen kar su go nanjur wa pho mi song ja ga ti ten la trabchen mo ni ge song ja ga ti si ne wa ji da traba de den si yang ge wa yen du da di ri ri ning deng ge.
So when we talk about the 7 texts of the masters, the first is this text on Sawandupa, the accomplishing of the secrecy, which was composed by the first master, which is Tsogidoji. Then the second is based on the writings brought on by the disciples of this master, Tsogidoji. There were like two female masidas who wrote on it. So Rinpoche tanda Drupchen Tsogidoji gi zebe sawan drube di tengla di korangi loma.
Di loma da di sawan drube di drube di denga nangba tambo tsawan rawa chigi. Da nipa di awana di loma yanlag meba durji sena da tana sangjawa di loma yanlag meba durji seje di drupchen di tabshi draba seje di draba niwa yindingi.
Tabshi mebe.
Tabshi draba se.
Tabshi druba.
Nijang din tsanla tabshi draba. Da ji loma di sawan draba. Niwa di tabshi draba se.
The second volume is known as, the second of the 7 texts is the accomplishment of the methods, composed by the the disciple of Tsogidoji, Yangla Mebe Doji. So this is the second text, accomplishment of the accomplishment through the method.
That somebody do not deal on the Yangla Mebe Doji Loma. Entram but the then the Jabu entram but the some you are the Tombo the Party in a gong entram but the some candy in the Jean de Ishi Trabas, the Trabas somebody in.
And the third text is a accomplishment of the transcendental wisdom or the exalted wisdom, which was composed by the previous one's disciple. Yangla Mebe Doji, the previous one's disciple, whose name is Indrabodhi. Indrabodhi. So Rinpoche says, there were like 3 Indrabodhis, but Rinpoche, the Indrabodhi sum nane thambudre.
And Dabarji Jabu entram with the Senate in Busari.
Rinpoche thinks that it is the king Indrabodhi.
Ojida Jabu entram with the Chama, Samodi, Yon Truchin Moji and Bayandu, Javadi, Chamasi. Jabu entram with the Cham Samoam, Lakchema, Karasi, Jeti, Zezangigo, Nimi Trabasi, Jon Javadi ending.
And the fourth one is accomplishment of non-duality. Which was this text was composed by the queen of King Indrabodhi. So that's this fourth text. And the fifth text is a fifth text is what is known as simultaneous accomplishment, natural accomplishment, simultaneous. Innate, that's right, innate accomplishment, which was composed by the master Dombiba, Heruka Dombiba. Dombi Heruka.
Karzego Tijawa the Zunona, Tagib Dingy, you got to change you are in Dombi Heruka,
So if you see the pictures of Mahasiddhas he's the one riding the tiger.
Oji dadi ijong di rumbu hirika tibchen rumbu hiriki sangjawa di lenchi chitub jong di jong ngaba tiba ngaba dadi roni jong tuba di jerbun darika ba si je tibchen demchaka namjirwa chi yengu yuwari di somjawa di songa chimbu di kuna nye tiba di kuna nye tiba songa chimbu di kuna nye tiba si je di da karisigo tuba di ending.
And the next text is composed by Drupchen, the Masida Darikapa, which and the accomplishing the suchness, which is the great secret, which is the accomplishment of the suchness, the ultimate.
Oji da dina yemba yendu da songa tukpa ji tan tama damba di yang nanjurma mu tenjen jiga nanjurma zato si jen sen dina jen dinga di yang di ngubur sarwa jisan ruwa di kunanya trapa si ta jingama di kunanya trapa si ji ri di songa chenpo di kunanya trapa si shaman di ngubur sarwa jisan ruwa di kunanya trapa si ji di ta dindraga yang dambu di ta trapa di dana si ta trapchen po nga ji mo ni di ta dangban zi jawa go yang dambu di la trapa di dana si sang jawa ding.
Rinpoche, damba di
chan ana ngubur sarwa jisan ruwa di kunanya trapa ta chi ngama di kunanya trapa ji ri di ngama go daru kavi songa di songa chenpo di kunanya di ngubur sarwa jisan ruwa di kunanya trapa si ji.
So the seventh text is a text composed by a female Mahasida Tsodu. Also, this text is Ngobosawa, means clarifying, direct clarification of the suchness. Accomplishment of the direct clarification of suchness. The previous one is accomplishment of the suchness, but is distinguished as being the great secrecy. This text, the seventh one, is accomplishment of the suchness, but clarifying. Through direct clarification.
What did that?
Okay. So basically, these seven texts are composed by 5 male and 2 female Mahasiddhas.
No, did that? Did I invite that about the Dumbotan? The Gona, Judah. Toa Korsam Seva, the Sansa Kritikatani, and Toa San Yuarita, Toa Sijiti, Pokera Surgery on a Nimbo Korsam San Yuariti. That in the Musa and Rangamandi, the Inji, Toa Korsam Seduna, or Jidam, Jitamalar and Bujimar, Tapa Jilan Tono, Jitamalin Gumbamasi, Songar Gungur, Jijaga Yuaruati, no Jango, Jerbu Travatovano, Jebun Gurjijawatila, Jerbu Toasi, Yon Samu. Travatomna da Nangurji Javatila, Samotoa Siji, Jerbotoa, Samotoa, Teni Montoa Sidi, Yanji Jerboda, Samo Payamamba, Mamangotini, Ontabato Demigo, Yanji and Gurjan Javatina, Dijavati, Montoa Sina, Toa Corsum Sidina, Jerbotoa, Samotoa, Ojita, Montoa Sina, that in Jibukira Surgeona, Nyambuosi. Then Gurji Java, Taban on Jilla Taban on Gurji Java, Jean Dela, Nyambos in the course of using it to some way. Did them go like on that day, Jean Chitamba in you.
And so the 3 core volumes, the 3 essential volumes are composed just like how you have the 100,000 songs, spiritual hymns of Milarepa. In the same way, you have the 3 core volumes are a composition of the spiritual hymns of the king, the spiritual hymns of the queen, and the spiritual songs of spiritual experience of the not king, queen, but the public, like that, among of the general public, like that is what is referred to as the 3 core volumes.
Oji da dinda yamba yendu dandi yugo dana teni nyembo kursam na towa kursam yan la asi da yen yiga tsamo towa da ma towa niga dana ngusa sama de tiyan dana taksi jiga jiwari da yamba yendu patno damji jamba sang kuwa nga shi na asi da towa samga nani ma towa di jiga yang nam tak jiga re se na sharji nanga yuwari jabu towa da tsamo towa se jidi yen ku kaya sang yiga yang jiga re ma ta jiga drupchen jiga kashi go ngarji jagan ra yin sari di jiga jabu towa se jiga tsamo towa se na tinda go ngarji jaga re se na kaya jaga jiga re ma ta yang nam tak jiga ma re se na sang nanga yuwa yendu wada towa samga nani ma towa di nam tak dang yen ni kaya ra yin sang so se ta di sangi de patong tamji chenpa yin ding.
So, in accordance with the writings of the Pudun Tamche Khenpa, then he says that that the third of the 3 core volumes, the third one, which is the spiritual hymns of the general of the many, of the general of the many, is a valid text. Whereas the previous 2, the hymns of the collection of hymns of the king and the queen, then he says that although they are the spiritual hymns of Mercedes, but it's just labeled as it's just called the spiritual hymns of the king and the queen, but it says that they are not valid texts.
Oji da dinda yamba yendu da dinda chigi din tsam dani chigi ja dani yang chigi dazu kore yana kadang zuwa dazu kore yana yang chigi taban dari yana yang nari punan kare.
So Rinpoche says Rinpoche will stop here for now, and then if you have any questions with regards to today or yesterday, then you can ask now. Yeah, go ahead.
When you share something about the Mahamudra, subjective mind of Mahamudra, you talked about the interpretive or definitive atu, and then you talked about the instructional drop.
Introspective mind.
Instructional mind. You learn the drop?
No, it's very honesty.
Okay. Oh, well then that answers my question, but I'll ask it anyway. I was wondering if that had anything to do with like the type of completion stage where that enables the person to get into the central channel to have that, very settled mind. If like the one, the interpretive definitive referred to like the person did too much practice and entered as enable, and another one might have entered as the heart. Does it have anything to do with that, or no? Does that make sense?
No, say the question again.
Well, when Rinpoche was talking about the subjective mind of Mahamudra, the very subtle mind, and there were different types, and one of them was the interpretive or definitive atum, and one of them was just the indestructible mind or the self-living mind. And I was just wondering if those different labels had anything to do with...
They're the same mind, but with different labels.
Well, I understand it's the same mind, because it's always a very subtle mind, but I was just wondering if it had anything to do with how that person got into that state, if they entered through the navel, if they entered through the heart.
which Eugene Chavez children should have said which Niandu Chandra Niandu after the mission sent that which Monguchi
Eugene Chavez children Mingmongbush Dasha the Mingmongbu the Eugene Chavez children semble sem the Mundu Doyagi Chedota Pena Tumo Gombata Damando Gombetone, the lesser chora, lesser someday, Tewala, Tebe Kadusaware, Niga Kadusaware, in the Chikaver
or Nindo. Ori that did you got to go, that Majid Zoyana, the Mogombas on Guari, Ojida Dini, Jida Pajidan Dinda Yana Yanju, Gumba Nidi, Zawa the Dimari, Igi Karizago, Tommy Wakasina, Yarni, Goyaja, Song Yuari, Jidika Jina, Magi Marni, Goya, Song Yuari, or then Ramada Song Yuari, Dim, you and who you are, Madi.
Rinpoche says, in accordance with the Mother Tantras, then you have meditating on the Tumo.
Right.
And then in accordance with the Father Tantra, then the meditation focuses at the upper tip or the lower tip. There various methods. But did it answer your question?
I just wondered why they had different
names,
and if it had anything to do with the Mother
practice.
Tantra or Father Tantra, or the different practices, is that had to do why they had different names if it's all the same mind?
The kasure yujin chage chumbula tsam mambo tagoya jumze kharina swari in
Or that day, Chili Mandava, you are and do Chili really going methods and be whatever.
Because of the different functions of this subtle mind, then you have these different titles, different names to signify the functions of this mind. Chile. Okay.
Jerong Roni Marason, do not Chili Mandava, you are. Adon Sijide, Jida Karasigo, Jiga Karasigo, and the Yundra Kanjin Java said, No Yaga Savadi, Longa to the Wari, Long de Longa Taro Nisi, Long Tamodi, New Milon Senada, or Jida Tinaga Chani on Adon Joyachi. The needy Chandra travel long Tamo de la Gadu and Yamchanga, do gender, Tomini, Tavardan, Tani, San Gisevardin, Rumiji, and do Shigadan, Tria, Meva Chani, Mashiwa to this Anguari. Young Jumaji Mayamba, Maju at Tamboni, Yoba, and do Maju to this Anguari. So, or did that in every Chinese Chili Madagunita?
For example, when we talk about the Atung, in accordance with the highest yoga tantra practice, then this with regards to Atung, in the expression in the text known as the expression of the names of Manchu, within this, the R is referred to as the syllable which is the most supreme in amongst all the syllables. The source of all the mantras, and the mantras arise from the winds, and the winds you have the subtle winds and the gross winds, and then here the Atung, the most supreme in amongst all the syllables, the source of all the mantras, then here refers to the primordial wind, which which is there, from beginner's lifetime, such as this very subtle mind or the very subtle wind, which is there without creation, indestructible. So, because of these many features attributed to this very subtle wind and mind, then you have these different titles that signify these features.
Rinpoche discussed the three subtleties of mind, gross, subtle, and very subtle. And also how the sutra is the gross mind and the three lower classes of Tantra, the subtle mind. And the three lower classes of Tantra, the subtle mind, and the highest Yoga Tantra is the most subtle mind. Does that mean that the three lower classes of Tantra are dealing with the minds of black nirvana, white, red, and black?
Rinpoche
the simdi kasre simdi rubbing da Rabada Tower so Christ and Rimchi Tanda tanda lame yudishi on the chevrechine yudu homo sumbunan gi homo sumbudina semdinzo rakpatse lamege nange semdi tawat segulwasa
the lamic some tawat as you are married some tarak mambuji sonyadi jidi java lamini sonjoyari jidi ama samna some tarak kitchen rose on you are married in logic yerla tabji nyamne dan cherabji nyamne niga doni na cherabji nyamne go lodi laka tabji nyamne de lo laka ni chik sam gua yuari teli sabre tan lo chik no yerla tabji nyamne ni yerla ni cherabji nyamne niga samadi yidi ama sambu kamna tinda juma dan taraka kicheshi yuamar
in the three lower tantras there is no mentioning of gross and subtle minds. The feature of these, the different levels of the subtleties of the mind is mentioned only in the scope of the highest Yoga Tantra. In comparison to the sutra, you have a distinctive mind engaging in the practice of the method, distinctive mind engaging in the practice of the wisdom, whereas in the three lower tantras, then you have the mentioning of the mind which incorporates the practices of both method and wisdom within one mind, but there is no mentioning of the varying subtleties in the three lower tantras. That only comes in the highest Yoga Tantra. So what was the second part of your question? That's it? Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead.
My question is on the four types of ways that the subtle mind arises. I wanted to clarify the first two ways mentioned, I think were like dream state and fainting. So I'm wondering that if a dream state was being more associated with closer to the time of sleep, because I can think of some other ways that a dreamlike state can be induced, such as something like floating on water, or some yogis will cover themselves in sand, go underground where their senses are shut down. And in the case of fainting, there are some shaman traditions where that people will take a drastic method of taking like cobra venom, and there's some fainting type of dream state induced. So I'm wondering if those three ways I mentioned are kind of valid and associated with these first two ways of subtle mind arising.
The first one is the first one, what you say, like one induced by the sleep, what about the yogis, like lying on the water?
Yeah, something like a flotation device where that your body is completely kind of shut off from other sensory perceptions because you're just floating on water. I'm wondering if some subtle mind can arise like that.
Subtle mind arising when you are floating in the water?
It's a technique that people use in lessons called a flotation technique. You go and you float in water, you're completely sense deprived, you don't have any light, you don't see anything, and you're very relaxed and you get into very, very subtle states of mind. So is that
right,
the question?
Exactly,
Kind of wondering
exactly.
if that could also be a way to arise the subtle mind.
Shindu tawe sem wendu chuwe kap shisumurwa. Kap shisum krangisana tarsan dwa chil inde chig chunal chig zu ani khasure shiva rakwadan su ganga mabus chig sim hlevura shiva soje chig chunal chig keshengu di kap surumche inde shin tawe wendu tuwe tusis yoras.
Chino
아니 특급치기야 인데스도 카셰 미카셰 가수래 단다 샘 게베니 kop스나 이제 카셰게 톡톡리 인데 슈크침부세 세제 엔직 샘 게베 직 소와서 뉴아르 유베칼 디컵스에 신도 타베 샘 요르베스 인데르치스도 데 룸치 숨베 네컵 시마임베 크랑게 네컵 야니치 셴도 디 컵스 인데
엔지 정리도 이젠다 지성 요아로다 크라즈시야 디한테 지근한 두비요지리다 니kam도 오면도 시자와 마다 지금에는 그 동아에는다 지 가르치고 감다 잡는다 지 Kashiga Tensama Kamdamata Jamna, the need some solar chicken on the washer, Nankalam Devando, didn't Sharaji, you are second ago. That is all, she went Tamujing on the Jirakabi, you say.
Rinpoche says, in accordance with the text, they just say these are the 4 occasions when you have the experience of the subtle mind, but what you mentioned, like taking a poison and then going through that kind of state, or I try to describe as much as possible of the floating thing. But Rinpoche said that it might be included into one of the 4. Like for example, Rinpoche said, like there are people who take certain injections and go through some sort of experiences of the mind, of the subtle mind, like that. So it could be included in one of the 4 categories. But in the text, it just mentions those 4 occasions, and your 2 methods could be part of any one of those 4. Yes.
Does an arhat experience the most subtle level of mind?
Dachumbanam Kunanzu Gula Shindu Sem Yorves.
That Drajumbala custom you are when you do Drajumba, Raja Drajumba, you know Drajumba to so down. The Tajin Baba, the Sanjim Baba, and you get Tajin Baba Drajumba, some of your no need you that Sanjim Baba to Jela, and then travel some time with you about what you that Drajumba to see to Jela, some time you are it. They must say Drama Jumbo must that you are not your cup, young on the Jeva you are one.
Whether you are an arhat of the Shravaka or the arhat of the Pratika or arhat of the of the Arya path, everyone has which is in fact as ordinary beings we all have a subtle mind. So the question was,
what's the difference between then an arhat, Shravaka or Pratyeka, Buddhist experience of the most subtle mind,
and
as opposed to a Mahayana Arya?
Kechin Dachumbe Yugi da Shindu Tame Semchi Nyoya Charwa. Dida Pena the pop the Rangeda Nyentu Dachumbe Yugi Shindu Tame Semchi Nyoya Charwa.
Or the Drajumba Sejiti, Numovi Sejiti, to Duvati Tardi Varimato, Shichi Duali Tariwa Maruva, Tinravi Chani Mara, Chicken Tomenda, Topa and Tomenda, you are.
So in the case of the the Shravaka or Arya Shravaka or the Pratyeka Arhat and the Arya Arhat, because of the difference in what they have removed in the way of obscurations. In the case of the Shravaka or the Pratyeka Arhats, the what has been eliminated is the obscuration of just the defilements or the delusions, and have yet to get rid of the obscuration to omniscience. So in the experience of the subtle mind is very different.
Malam Tango Caps, Maranga, Malam Tango Caps, some Tramon in Jirki. You are ready, Namje, New Malawa Caps, some Tramo than Rafani, Yamde, you are ready, some Rafa di Shichiva and do Tramo di Marango di Tramo di Titina, home episode, which days of your matter, Yersiago, and you are the one the Jirki.
Like when we talk about the 4 occasions when the subtle mind manifests, like at the time of sleep, usually, as for ordinary beings, then we have the subtle mind there, but the gross mind is so very powerful, so it overtakes everything. It's like the subtle mind is there beside the gross mind, but is powerless to engage in any object.
지금 쉬어 첨보디 말아 샘 라바디 말지 고감라고 마모지라고 그 요딩 지금 정화디 말아 샘 잠원라고 연도 디디 피나요나 지금 매버선라고 지디 고감라고 요 말아 버티 나죠 시와 라바몬데 남제신 잠모 피나요 요아리디 고고 고감라고 선탁고 요 말이 어디 라바몬데 마지로 가서도 그 뭔데 지로 갑자기 니께 와 연도다 디디 자고 요아로
So, just like for example, you have two brothers. You have the older one and one which is a baby. So they are there both together. But if there is an opportunity of engagement, it's always the older one, and the younger one, has no opportunity to engage. So in the same way, for the beside the gross mind, together with the gross mind, then beside it, you always have the subtle mind. But but it has no. While the gross mind is there, it has no opportunity to engage with any objects. So here, we are seeking the opportunity. Here what we are seeking here is the opportunity for the subtle mind to be able to engage with its object.
So I think, Hinayana Arhat, does he ever use the subtle mind to meditate, or he just...
태명기 다정반 남기 신도 타베 셈라 패주 당거베스
대신에 저 셈라 패주 당야다 가리나 저 당고 감자상 요아 말이와다 지금 말람 그 시와도 비저 당연라 이렇게 유지와 마도데 컨테너 시와 타락이 유한적인지 참고 급 시와 지금 무슨 버때니 좀 들어서 요아 말이와
On the Hinayana instructions, you might not find specific instructions distinguishing gross and subtle mind and seeking out tactics to utilize. It might not be there like that, but of course, when you cannot. But of course, for example, when they go to sleep and utilize the subtle mind at the time of sleep, that happens on the Hinayana path.
시원지 청름단 렌름단 토름 강국가는 세르리리 요기우사리와디 예나지 이tam세지 덴iten고 콘다 딘다고 세르디 지 소체 마거도 감나죠 시지 아요메요디 어다지 가르서 니스 최전 차바인도지 토름과 값을 말해 성야지 인구이 바로 앞에 되는 좀 다르고 남서지야디 디디지와니 성야디 딘다인디
For example, when we go through education system, you have the primary, secondary, high school. You go through an education system, but with regards to, say, with more profound topics dealing with atomic particles, might not be dealt with at the level of the primary education and so forth. So it's just like that. With regards to topics such as this very subtle mind, then it is only it comes to be mentioned only in the scope of the highest yoga tantras.
Is the subtlest mind permanent?
Shindu tawe sems the takpa deves. Not permanent. It is impermanent.
That Quran Samrodi Tangiwa Indira, Gender Nidiwa in Dutabaris, the Handi Chuluku Semsiji, Nasiji, Tabayansi, Genchia maybe Chanity Sekiwara. The Kichi in Jerdo Yango Yua and Dutabamariwa, Jerkadiwari, Matawari.
It is impermanent, but it is there continuously, continuously there from beginningless lifetime. Continuously there. For example, in the Hindu system, when we talk of the eye, because it is there continually, it bears the connotation of being permanent. But here, when we talk about something not being permanent, or being impermanent is because it changes from moment to moment. And because it changes from moment to moment, then we say it's not permanent, but it is impermanent. It is impermanent, it is impermanent, but it doesn't mean it is impermanent, but it is still continuously there from beginningless time.
What quality of the mind is changing? Our experience of it?
Similar, Kechik really, you are ready, and so you are turning you are resa. Yes, through our experiences.
Like
Within the scope of a day, our mind goes through so many different experiences, good times, bad times, so forth.
When Rinpoche explained the difference in the subjective mind meditating on emptiness, and that now he's just explained the Tantra method, and the rest of the text is explaining the sutra methods of Mahamudra. Is the implication that we are to use the what's explained as the Sutrayana methods in the actual clear light meditation in the Tantra path?
Tanda di rumchi tanda yuchen chagya chumbo semse chorwa. Ta tanda di tambu de dorduche tanda nga thone chik sungorwa. Jele dogi thone chik sungorwa. Ta di nyamnen so kevre china ta rasike simdul kiya chedo di dogi thone gombore nga thone gom indis rochi kisti.
that so the ngakatani gungu yarwa. Chandan Chaba Langsam Chamo Demonde, that Zavram Guni, Zavram Gukaku, some Chamo Demonde, Kirti, T. Tombani, the Shibaji John, and Nishi Chivaji in Givarua. But that's all Beati Tigi Givarua. Ngakata. Zavram Guguni.
From the point of view of from the point of view of generating that subjective mind of Mahamudra, or the mind of the great completion, the Dzogchen, then the instructions that one should follow should be in accordance with the Tantra for that mind. To bring forth that mind of great completion, then the instructions has to be followed in accordance with the Tantric instruction.
To bring your mind forward.
But
then the actual way to meditate on emptiness with that mind,
yeah.
Is it the same as what this text describes as the sutra method?
The Dzogpas Chimba Sem, the Yuli Kya Chedu.
The one temple, the Nyama in a Dzogchesikuara, and they Chirum Don, Zavram City, Zavram Gukavasam.
Rinpoche said, in the Nyingma tradition, it is known as the mind of great completion. Here, of course, we would refer to the meditative states of mind generated in the completion stage yoga. Rinpoche tanda dogi toneta tombani gomdan charwa. Di lobche di gyul kieni and tanda di yuchen chakachim send the gyul kia chagulwas.
Maridan Ndogadi Chidem Arkarse Gomasi Marim Don Derum Gishuna recovery Jidenji Tit and It Tara Sabre Town Shigojing.
The meditating on emptiness as instructed in accordance with the sutra path is like the foundation, and it's that that subjective mind meditating on emptiness has to be more and more and more refined in order to engage it in that kind of in that kind of level of the subjective mind of Mahamudra. So just use the analogy saying like the subjective mind realizing emptiness in accordance with the sutras, like the primary and secondary, and then when you are involving the subjective mind of Mahamudra is at the highest level.
Could you tell us, in a way that maybe we could understand, I don't anyway, but the difference between gross and subtle mind experientially, is it no grasping with it at all?
Some Tawa said the Keva Kandis chick, Mansu, New Dindet to some Japanes, New Dindet some Towers chick.
Ori, that the Benading as in Nimaku Goin, Mukazin Tongari, Amjaka Datu, Tikala, some Rapain Giva. New Kuzantina, Amjaka Datu Amandiga, Mukazin Toyamandiga, she went how much of the
For example, everything that we see here is at the gross level. Then, for example, when we go to sleep, when we no longer see visual objects or hear sound, then at that time we experience subtle minds. And then when we dream in that sleep is when we experience subtle mind.
Maybe you should add, and the very subtle mind, just to complete the discussion.
What? And the very subtle.
And then, so the very subtle mind comes when.
And it cranks in some Rinpoche tower, Shinto tower, some said the Huashawaras.
Chism Tam.
The very subtle mind is the mind, the subtle mind at the time of death.
Jonga do Zubo around at Toria meeting. Amjaka Datua meeting, the Nimmer, Shatamazon and Palakiti, then you can Jalakiti, she went Tamu Chism Tam.
When all of the potency of all our elements of the body are completely absorbed or dissolved, when the mind and the body are about to separate, just on the verge of separation, is when you experience the very subtle mind of the very subtle mind, which is the subtle mind at the time of death. Yeah, go ahead.
Already there, but you didn't